history. If you missed the last two that we've had, you can check them out on Facebook, on YouTube, actually, on the YouTube Samantha's Bridal channel. You can find them there. But today's discussion is specifically for you who is getting married, the bride, you who's getting married, the groom. Because you know what? COVID happened. And as a result of COVID happening, a lot of people have a lot of questions. What will I do with my wedding? Now that I had already started my wedding, started planning my wedding, but I had to postpone it or I had to cancel it. I'm not too sure if I should postpone it indefinitely or to a particular date. Well, the main agenda of our meeting today is to walk with you in making these decisions. These hard decisions that you have had to face. We know that many of you brides, and these are the questions that we hope to address. The format of this show, if I can just quickly take us through the format, is that first and foremost, there are many of you who have already sent us questions. Be it you've sent us questions on to each particular panelist who's here, or those who sent questions to Samantha's Bridal. What we're going to do for the first half of the session is have an opportunity to answer these questions. But immediately after that, we're going to have a second segment of the show, which is the live Q&A. If you have questions that you would like to ask that perhaps you feel have not been represented during the first segment, these are the questions that we would like to address in the second segment, the live Q&A. So what I need you to do is I need you to use the Q&A feature of the Zoom, of Zoom. Just log into the Q&A and ask your question there, and we will do our very best to make sure that we answer it. And if you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, feel free to leave that question on the comments section, and our producer, our YouTube producer, will be able to get that question, send it to us, and we'll be happy to tackle that question for you. The other thing that we would love for you to do, by the way, is if you know someone who should listen into this discussion, please send them this webinar so that we can work with and help as many brides and grooms as we possibly can. The idea here is to allow you, the bride and the groom, to have a stress-free wedding planning process and experience even during COVID. So if you know someone who should be part of this conversation, please invite them. The other thing that we would so very much love for you to do is to interact with us. So there is the chat section here on Zoom, and there is also the comment section on Facebook, on Facebook and YouTube. Please chat with us. For example, tell us, where are you watching us from? Or when was your original wedding date, and when have you postponed it to, or is it postponed indefinitely? Chat with us and let us know where you are so that we know that we are together. We'd sincerely appreciate that. Before I go too far, I would love to begin by introducing the lady who birthed this idea, has been in charge of making sure that these conversations are happening, and that is Dr. Catherine Masitsa. She is the founder and CEO of Samantha's Bridal. Catherine Masitsa, I don't know if you could introduce yourself and perhaps give us the opening remarks, and then thereafter I will invite our panelists to also introduce themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce and welcome on this digital stage, Dr. Catherine Masitsa.
See you clapping. Thank you very much, Kimari, and thank you our viewers joining us from whichever part of the world you're joining us, whether it's on YouTube or on Zoom. You're very much welcome. I hope you're having a good evening, and we are ready to answer any questions you may be having, especially if you're to be weds. Because we know that each day that passes, all the 2020, even 2021 couples, they are coming to this very heartbreaking realization that their wedding plans may not be as they had anticipated. They may have to change. And this is due to the devastating realities of the corona pandemic, as we all know it. So your original dates may no longer be considered safe, or maybe even just logistically, it may not be possible. But once you have come to terms with this, you either want to cancel or postpone your wedding or the festivities you may have planned. That is just one of the first difficult decisions you have to make. There are very many other decisions you have to make along the way. So unfortunately, sometimes you may find that the dates you may have selected in the future may not be available, or maybe sometimes even the vendors you may have wanted to work with initially, you may have to part ways. And or even those wedding vendors may not be available. And or they may be available, they're asking for a fee that you may not afford, or your life circumstances may have changed. So the truth is COVID has messed up everybody, you, the to-be wed, but also the vendors. So we are just saying that let's be mindful when we are approaching this conversation. But when all is said and done, it is your day and you are 100% entitled to have the party of your dreams, of course, within your budget. So today we have assembled a team of different service providers and vendors from across the industry. They are here to answer all the pressing questions you may have. And I just want to say welcome to everybody and thank you for making time. Feel at home and relax. It's never that serious. I like to say that. At least I haven't said it throughout the webinars. It's never that serious, you know? So just relax and give time. So Kimari, over to you. Kimari, over to you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I would sincerely appreciate you being here and even for organizing these conversations so that they could take place. Thank you so much, Catherine. Like Catherine has mentioned, we have a list of some of the top wedding experts, let me call them gurus, here in the wedding industry, just so that you who is planning your wedding can have a broad spectrum of answers, so that the answers that we give you are not limited to just one particular space in the wedding industry. We have planners, we have caterers, we have people in the fashion industry, but without further ado, allow me to invite them to introduce themselves. What we're going to do is we're going to introduce them based on their space in the wedding industry. So I will begin with all things beauty for you, the bride, beginning with the lovely Nazira. Nazira, if you could please unmute yourself and introduce yourself and your brand.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. I'm Nazira Dalla from Next Bridal Boutique, Kenya. I've dressed brides for over 3 decades, and today I'm here for you.
Thank you so very much, Nazira. We sincerely appreciate you being here. Next up on stage, allow me to introduce our in-house makeup artist. You know her as Beauty by Mo. Maureen, if you could please introduce yourself and your brand.
Thank you very much, Kimari, for allowing me to introduce myself. My name is Maureen Medora. I'm a professional makeup artist and founder of Beauty by Mo. So we offer bridal makeup services, and our job is to ensure that the bride and her team will look picture perfect on her wedding day and to look the best among the rest. We are here for you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maureen. We sincerely appreciate you being here. Ladies and gentlemen watching us, like I said, we have people across the entire wedding industry, even hoteliers. So on that note, Winfrida, please allow me to invite you to introduce yourself.
Hello, how are you, everyone? I'm Winfrida from Safari Park Hotel. I have my colleague with me, Jared Isanda. I don't know if you can see him. He's on my far left.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. So thank you for having us. We are from Safari Park. We are glad to be part of this discussion. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Winfrida. We appreciate you being here. Moving to catering. Now that we have the bride, you have your gown, you've done your makeup, you've chosen your venue. You need to make sure that your food is sorted. Allow me to introduce to you Jimton. Jimton, if you could please introduce yourself to our guests.
Hi, everyone. To be here with you guys in 2020. My name is Jimton Okeo, the CEO of Harvester Catering. And so we offer the best catering in the industry. Thank you for being here, and we will answer your questions today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimton. Also, another caterer who's here with us, but she is also our planner. Allow me to introduce to you Ruth. Ruth, please introduce yourself and your brand.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us here and the opportunity to share stuff with the people. I'm from Ruthie J Platinum Events. I'm a designer, planner, and producer, and at the same time, we also do catering. I'm very glad to be here and to be part of this great mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ruth. I'd also like to apologize both to Ruth and to our viewers. Her name has not been properly placed. It is Ruth Odanga from Ruth J Platinum Events. I'd kindly request our Zoom producer to please make that change. We'd sincerely appreciate even as we proceed with the webinar. But moving on, allow me to introduce our planner, who is also our florist, Rosemary Teka. If you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. This is Rosemary Teka from Splendid Weddings. I'm a wedding planner and a floral stylist, passionate about making event spaces beautiful. We are happy to be here to help you navigate through this COVID season and see how we can work together moving forward. Over to you, Kimari.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Appreciated. Yet another planner who has made it here, who has joined us here. Terry, if you could please introduce yourself. Terry is both in the planning and decor world. Terry. Terry, we would request if you could unmute yourself. So guys, this is what happens when you are in the digital space. When you're in a physical event, a microphone drops. When you're in the digital space, your microphone just won't unmute. There we go.
My name is Terry Mugo from Tandy.
Terry, you will allow me to come back to you and introduce you yet again as we try to bring you back online. But allow me to introduce our next panelists, our photographer, very passionate photographer, Keegan. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. And
I'm glad to be here. Let's see how the way forward in our events.
Thank you, Terry. It looks like you have been connected back. Thank you very much, Terry. We appreciate you being here. Keegan, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kimari, and thank you, Catherine, for having us here. Thank you all for tuning in, the guys who've tuned in with us. My name is Keegan. I'm the lead photographer at Photography by Keegan. And my work and our work is to tell your love story beautifully on your big day. So I'm waiting and I'm happy to be here, and I'm waiting to answer to all your questions that you have. Thank you. Over to you, Kimari.
All right. Thank you, Keegan. Last but certainly not least, we decided, if you noticed, well, let me just pay him the compliment. Last but certainly not least, the gentleman in the house, Muntazir, representing both photography and film. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kimari. My name is Muntazir Shabir. I am the director of Yusuf Photography. I would like to thank Samantha Bridal for organizing this event. So we are in the photography and video sector as you have introduced me already. So I did not say more. Let us continue with our webinar.
All right, thank you very much, Muntazir. And for those who do not know me, my name is Kimari Maina. I am a wedding MC at Sisimsha Entertainment, where we make sure you have fun at your wedding. We make sure you dance, you have the time of your life, but at the same time, we manage your event so that your event runs seamlessly. And I'm glad to be here. And again, Catherine, thank you for having us. It is my honor today to be your host, which basically means to be the KYM. If you need anything, it is my job to make sure that you who is watching us are able to have it. We'll go straight into the discussions. And just like we've done the introductions, we will begin with the beauty world, where we will be inviting Nazira and Maureen to tackle questions revolving around the beauty of you, the bride. So for the grooms, let me just point this out. It's important for you to know, in the wedding, you are just like a prop. You know, the day belongs to the bride, to be very honest, which is why we're beginning with them. Plus, it has been said before many times, ladies first, which is why we would like to address them first. So Nazira, if you could allow me to ask you the first question that was.
It's frozen. Where? Frozen.
Nazira, if I could just ask the question again. First question being, can you still shop a gown even if your wedding is in 2021?
Thank you. Seems I had some technical issue. Couldn't hear, but yes, I got your question. I think this is the perfect time to start looking for a gown. The advantage is that you have all the time you need. We offer flexible payment plan to suit your budget. So I think this is a good time to start now. You can choose your dream gown with no financial stress. And also, we have a new collection of bridal gowns. If you realize, right after the bridal fair, the pandemic happened. So whatever new arrivals we had at the time is all available for you. So I think it's a perfect timing to start early, even if your wedding is a year away, because this will really relax your mind, the situation we are in right now. And I feel it is the right time.
Okay. Well, Nazira, I guess the other concern that a bride might have is by them shopping for the gown early, that perhaps they could add weight or lose weight and therefore not be able to fit properly in the gown. Could you please possibly address that concern about loss of weight or addition of weight and therefore the gown not fitting well? What solution can be there for such a bride?
Okay, it's a great question, Kimari. Majority of our gowns have about 2 inches on each side, so that's like 4 inches. And if the body fluctuates over the time to the day, we can manage to either reduce or expand the gown. In fact, there are times that, let's say wedding is a year away, a bride can also get pregnant while waiting for the day. And so far we've had no issue. We have been able to fit her gown to her new size. So I don't see a problem there at all.
Okay. Another thing that brides have had to face is perhaps a bride had already bought her gown and she then had to learn that she had to postpone her wedding. And unfortunately, perhaps even indefinitely. So she's not too sure when her wedding day will be, but she already has the gown. How can she store the gown? Can she store it in a garment bag, for example, for 8 months, for 10 months? What is the proper way to store a wedding gown?
Okay, we do look into that. A lot of times brides start early, even without the pandemic, a year to the wedding. What we do is once we have done all the fittings of her gown, we make sure it's dry cleaned, it's clean. as long as the gown is clean and we give it to them in a zipper bag, knowing that the wedding is a year away, we put some mothballs in the zipper bag to preserve the fabric of the gown. In fact, they can preserve the gown for almost 2 years. So there's absolutely no stress in that line. Yes.
Wow, thank you so much, Nazira. We sincerely appreciate these answers. And for those of you who are watching, if you feel as if there's a question that we have not addressed in the area of bridal gown, and not just bridal gown, but also the maid's attire, I'll even dare say the groom's attire, please post your questions in the Q&A and we'll be happy to address them. But still on the subject of the bride and her beauty, Maureen, I think you're one of the vendors who work very closely with the bride. And what I mean by closely, I don't just mean relationship-wise, but also physically. You have to be, very close to her face in order to work on her face. What are the safety precautions a makeup artist should take, with regards to social distancing, for example, during the makeup application process?
Thank you very much, Kimari, and that's a very important question, especially during this time of the pandemic. So as you all know, makeup artistry involves touching of our clients' faces. Sometimes you're so close to the client, you're almost kissing the clients, So people are going to be very conscious, even if they're being touched with gloves. So this pandemic has caused us makeup artists to be adaptive and innovative in our industry. So we'll have to maximize the safety and hygiene on the set. So hygiene will first come and then creativity next. So this means that we have to take some precautionary measures to ensure that we are safe and even our clients are safe. So what will happen is that we will have to increase the number of, for example, tools per person. You find that in the past, a makeup artist would use, for example, one brush per 2 clients. But right now, that is not going to happen anymore. So we will increase the number of tools per person. We'll have to be very, be very careful with the sanitization of our makeup tools. And this is ensuring that we sanitize the tools with even 70% of alcohol after every use and even on the surfaces. And we'll have to wear personal protective gear like masks, shields, gloves. We'll have to now wash our hands regularly before and after working on each client. Sometimes, like on set, I can have like 10 bridesmaids. So that will mean that after finishing one bridesmaid, I'll have to go to the sink, wash my hands, sanitize everything, and start afresh on the next bridesmaid. And that will perhaps mean that we will have to take more time and allocate more time to makeup. I hope I've answered your question, Kimari.
Yes, I believe the question has been answered. And again, for you who is watching, if you feel as if you need a little bit more detail, feel free to add it in the Q&A. But Maureen, there's the side of you, who is the professional, observing specific standards to make sure that, we're in keeping with what is happening right now. But how about from the bride's side? How can she take measures or precautions to protect herself, her family, her maids, etc.? Maureen?
Now, I know that the wedding day is usually a very happy day for the bride and the bridesmaids. So they tend to make merry a lot, to hug. There's never social distancing. But now with this pandemic, it will also have to change for the bride. And I would advise the brides to still maintain social distancing from their bridesmaids, their aunties. They normally come and congregate and crowd in the room. So makeup artists should ensure that the environment they're working in is even safe, even for the bride. So from now onward, we'll have to, for example, allow only 2 people in the room during the makeup, no more crowded rooms, no more spectators watching as you're doing the makeup. So for example, Beauty by Mo is working on having a separate kit for each bridesmaid. For example, we are planning on selling affordable makeup and brush sets for each bride and the bridesmaids, so that they can even take away after the the appointment. And this is to increase safety. So our goal is to make our clients feel safe during this pandemic, because I think this pandemic will be with us for a very long time. So we are taking those precautions. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. There was another bride who asked, I've put on fantastic makeup. I have lipstick that will make my groom go like, you know, this is the woman that I want to marry. But unfortunately, it's been covered by a mask. And I say covered by a mask because, you know, that's what we have to wear because those are the regulations laid out by government. So her question was, how can I and my bridesmaids still look gorgeous on the wedding day while still wearing masks? I'd like you to answer that question, and I'd like Nazira to also weigh in on the same because it's in her space also. Maureen?
Yeah, so now the masks is the new normal now. It's the protocol now, and as you've seen, much of the face is covered with the masks. So now, as makeup artists, our focus now on our brides, when you're doing the makeup, will be around the eyes. Yeah, meaning that we'll put more smoky eyes for the eyes to pop. For example, our emphasis will be on the eyebrows, lashes, eyeshadows, just to make the eyes pop. So as much as the mouth is covered, at least we will make sure the eyes pop. So the emphasis will be on the eyes. And we will also have to use waterproof or matte foundation that doesn't smudge, so that, you know, when, and I've seen the weddings that have happened during this season. So during the photo session, they remove the masks to take the photos, right? So we will have to make sure that we use waterproof and matte foundations that don't smudge, and to help the makeup stay put underneath without smudging the whole day. So those are some of the things that we'll have to change. Yes. So you can still look gorgeous with your masks on. We will just have to make your eyes pop.
Right. Thank you, Maureen. Nazira, I'd like you to weigh in on the same because this is in your field, in your world, fashion.
Sorry, I didn't get your question, Kimari.
How can a bride still look gorgeous while wearing a mask? And I know that this is in your world because I'm sure there are brides who have asked, do you have masks that match my gown or that complement my gown?
Yes, it's a good question. With keeping in mind the situation right now with the pandemic, the bride and the family, we have prepared the bride's face masks to match with the wedding gown. In fact, we throw it in as a complimentary with the gown because I know they are going to need it. And they're a bit, not the usual colorful masks. These are like lace, something that looks very bridal. And like Mo mentioned, that the eye makeup will be done in a way that the eyes will pop and you don't notice that there's still a mask on the face. So the mask will be a pretty one, even if the bride decides not to remove it for the pictures, she will still look very beautiful. In fact, there was a wedding recently. The bride is wearing a beautiful mask, and it was like she was actually trying to show off. So it's working because it looks like part of the attire. I mean, you look at some Muslim weddings, they cover their face and it's part of the faith. But this is because of the pandemic, and we try and make them look beautiful with the mask that we provide with the gown right now. Hope I have answered your question.
Wow, fantastic. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Thank you very much. We're still going to discuss beauty, and beauty comes in two forms. It comes first and foremost with how the bride will look. Hence, we discussed makeup, what the bride will wear, decor, and her space. What the bride will wear, gown, and then the space that is her wedding, which is decor. So, Rosemary, allow me to ask. There's a question that was asked. Any advice for a bride who is going to make her own bouquet? And I'm guessing she's asking this because perhaps budget constraints because people have lost their jobs, or perhaps she just wants to get creative and make her own bridal bouquet? Do you have any advice for such a bride?
Thank you, Kimari, for that question. What I would say to a bride who wants to do her own bouquet is reach out to a florist who understands, which flowers work together. And we are normally very willing to give advice to anyone who wants to go ahead and make their own bouquet. So I would be able to advise her on, depending on what the colors of her wedding are and what her maids are wearing, I'd be able to pair up a beautiful bouquet, even though not doing it myself. Just be able to give her advice on what flowers she should use and how she should pair them up. And definitely, if you're doing DIY, you don't want to make it too big so that it's not too complicated. So just keep it simple. So maybe at most, maybe 10 stems of roses or whatever flowers you'd be using. And also incorporate something that that you love. You can have a ribbon that came from your mom's dress. You can incorporate something that would make it all the more memorable. So just talk to a florist who would give you advice how to pair up the flowers. Thank you, Kimari.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Still on you, Rosemary, I think because the numbers have reduced, options of having your wedding at home have become available, because now we're only talking about 15 people, perhaps maximum, for a wedding. Can you share any advice or any ideas on how to do a small wedding at home?
Thank you for that question, Kimari. Yes, we have seen a lot of brides doing their weddings at home, and even going above and beyond, calling in someone to just transform their home into a beautiful wedding space. So what we have seen being done, and what we can do, is if you have a spacious living room, you can transform that into a ceremony area. That's in case the weather doesn't hold, or maybe the outside space is not big enough. And we can do something like draping. We can drape the entire room in white and it would look magical, and then use lighting to just transform the space. So yes, you can do weddings at home, and the same space can be transformed into the reception. So after you've done the ceremony, people can go out and share a cocktail or something. Meanwhile, you're transforming the same space into something magical, just bringing in the tables and the chairs. And now with social distancing, that will be about 6 tables for 15 people. So yes, it's possible and it can be done. You can either use your outdoor space or you can use your indoor space creatively to bring out something magical. Thank you, Kimari.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Just a few shout outs, if you can allow me, before I invite our next panelist to speak, which will be Terry. Kezia Auma, Catherine Rukenya, we can see your questions. Thank you very much for sending these questions via YouTube. We see you, and we shall be answering your questions just after this first segment of this webinar. We also have questions from Daisy, Flora, and Rebecca Ligo, and I really hope I am pronouncing these names right. If I have mispronounced, my sincere apologies. We've seen your questions here on Zoom, and we will be addressing them on the second segment of the show. So please keep them coming. If you have a question to any one of these panelists, please keep them coming. We'll be happy to address. Terry, are you here? There's a question here for you. For a bride who moved her wedding from May to next year, and she's wondering, does she need to rethink colors? And Terry, we'd love to see your face. So if you could remain with us throughout.
Can you see me now?
Does such a bride need to rethink colors? I can see you very clearly.
Thank you, Kimari, for that's a good question. I think weddings are all about what's trending. And I think when it comes to colors, you'd want to go with what's trending then. But also there's some couples who decide on particular colors because they're maybe their favorite colors. So I think all depends with the person, mostly the brides.
Mostly the brides, eh? Looks like the grooms usually have very little to say on the colors of the wedding, which is fine. We're here to support the bride and to make sure she's happy. There's someone who told me, happy wife, happy life. That is something that the grooms should probably try to adopt. But there was another question about budget. One of the things that we have had to experience, for example, that many people have had to experience is job losses. But then again, then the question reads, what are some of the simple ways to make a budget wedding seem expensive? Is that possible? And how can it be possible? If you could share with us 2-3 examples of how such a thing can be made possible. Terry?
For a simple wedding to look more elegant, I think all depends with the wedding concept that you choose. I think if you try and add some small things, not really very expensive things to the decor, changes the whole look. Like if you do like a chat setup, then do a photo booth that makes the wedding more interesting, that people can come from the church and have a few photos taken. Also maybe a cocktail. Doesn't really mean that when you do a cocktail, you do expensive drinks. You can have just a few snacks on the setup, on the cocktail setup, and then maybe the guests can move to the reception after that. I think all depends with, we're used to coming from church to reception, but I think if you mix it up a little bit, it would make the wedding more interesting and look more elegant. Also on the centerpieces that one decides on using, I think really brings out the look of the wedding.
Thank you, Terry. And to those who are watching, we do realize that we may not be able to answer a question conclusively, which is why we would recommend that you reach out to any one of these panelists and ask them directly. Maybe I should just commit the panelists here. And I know we had not discussed this before, but I am very sure they will be more than happy to do so. 1 week of free consultation, ladies and gentlemen. So if any bride or groom wants to, has a question that they need an answer to, they should feel free to reach out to you and we will work with you. We will help you get comfortable with this season we're in, COVID, and help you think through what it means to move your wedding, be it 2-3 months, or maybe even a year, or maybe even into 2021. So yes, reach out to any one of them, even after this particular webinar. Ruth, allow me to move to you. And I'm coming to you based on 2 reasons. First and foremost, you are a planner. And secondly, you're also a mother. So you know what it means to be in the family, because this question revolves around family, and you also know what it means to be in the wedding space. How would you suggest handling relatives that insist on postponing your wedding? And this particular bride, it was a December wedding. How would you propose on managing those, such a family? If you could please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you. That's a really good question, because it really sometimes can be very difficult for the bride, especially, and the groom. Now, what I would suggest is that first of all, you need to know who are those relatives who are asking you to postpone. Are they your parents? Are they your siblings? Are they your friends, your aunties, etc.? And then what are the reasons that they have for the postponement? Because sometimes they may make sense, because it may be a family issue. It could be that probably the parents have not put together their gift and they would like just a little more time. It could be that maybe the siblings probably live far away, maybe away from the country, and they would like you to move the wedding so that they can be able to attend. So it really depends on the reason. So as the bride and groom, you need to weigh the options and then make a reasonable decision, but always remember the wedding is yours. So see how you can work around it depending on the reasons, because those are what really matter. Because but a lot of people may just want to fit into your wedding at their convenience. At their convenience. But if it is mostly relatives, there could be a reason, especially the nuclear family. That's, in my view, I would move my wedding because of issues concerning my immediate family, depending on what it is that they really have as the reason to move it. But if it's not really something heavy and you don't think, you assess it yourself and don't think that you should really move the wedding, then I don't see the reason why you should. As long as it is reasonable.
Thank you, Ruth. There was another question also revolving around family, which is, if you see, the reality is someone may have planned a wedding of 200 people, but now they have to plan a wedding of 15 people, which basically means choosing who the 15 people are going to be, or reducing your guest list from 200 to 15 people. How do you politely downsize your wedding, knowing that there are some people who might feel slighted that perhaps they were not the ones who were invited? Ruth?
Oh, okay. In this COVID season, I think it's very easy because everybody knows the reasons why we cannot have a big wedding. But we realize these are African families, and we have large families. For example, my family only, we are, if we are to consider just family, as in sisters, brothers, cousins, we are already 200. So I think in this case, in this situation of the COVID, it's easy. It's made it easier for people to be able to say, oh, look, we are just going to have a small ceremony, and we would like you to really forgive us for not having you come in, but we couldn't help it. But then you can also invite them to join you live on the different platforms, online, because it's happening. And then you can loop them in and ask them, are you able to, you ask them how to help you put together the platforms on which people can join you in your wedding. On the other hand, you could also just have a small ceremony, as it were, of the 15 people, and then plan, politely tell them, through your planner or through whoever is coordinating, that you are going to have the ceremony, but when things clear, especially with the COVID situation, then you can plan a grand reception at that time. I think people would understand that. And then also you can also just decide to move the wedding, because what is it? And if you really have to stay together, I believe that you can have your parents bless you to live together and then plan for a wedding later. So I think a wedding is not an emergency. You can work around it, and there's many ways. But in this COVID situation, it's easy to say, look, guys. So, and then of course you have to be very careful so that you balance on either side, so that you make sure you have the parents on either sides. Of course, you'll be yourselves and then the pastor and probably a few siblings, but you sit and discuss. Let the family help you to come up with the list of the 15. And I think that would work.
Right. Thank you so much, Ruth. And we acknowledge, by the way, trying to manage your family as a bride, as a groom, in downsizing, it's crazy. And
yes, it is.
And again, if you do need expert opinion on how to manage family, because these people have managed families many times before, reach out to them and they'd be happy to walk you through it. But allow me to move to Jimton.
Well, let me just add something also. It is important also for brides
Jimton,
and grooms.
There was a question that came in.
Sorry.
Yes, Ruth.
I was going to add that it is so important for people to understand that the wedding planners are really amazing people, because they know how to do the Kofi Annan, between the families. So it is good to involve planners because they have the skill, they have the knowledge, and it will help the bride and groom a lot because they know how to cool the tempers and to bring people to the table to agree on stuff. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. Wedding planners play many roles. They wear many hats, and one of those hats is being a coffee announcer. So thank you very much, Ruth, for that contribution. Jimton, another area that is usually quite sensitive in a wedding is food. And the question that was asked by a bride, which even I want to learn, is what is your catering company HACCP certified? So perhaps if we could first tell us what HACCP certification is, and then give us an idea of what that would look like. Jimton?
Thank you, Kimari. HACCP basically stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. This is a system that has been there in the industry to enable the checks and balances in terms of food management. Food is very critical. Food is one of the most sensitive items in an event, and particularly in a wedding, because a wedding, basically you have a huge numbers, 300 people, 700, 1,000. Some of the weddings we do are quite huge. So one of the most critical item is food, and food must be handled in a very, very careful way. So this standardization, the HACCP, basically is a preventative measure that has been adopted to take control of food right from the production, produce from the farms, to the preparation, to the cooking, and to the serving. It's basically a wide array of managing food from one point to the finish. And basically that ensures that all measures have been put in place right from the beginning to the end. The source of the food, where the food is coming from, how it is being handled during preparation, how it is being cooked, and how it is transported. Because you see, most of the outside catering work we do is in a venue that does not allow cooking. So cooking is done elsewhere in our kitchens. And so that transportation, and now it arrives at the venue, it still has to be warm and hot and fresh and presentable. So that whole process from the farm to the plate is what that standard represents, and basically takes care of the hygiene standards, the handling, and the quality of the product at the end. So that is what that standard means. Kimari.
Right. Allow me to ask a deeper question. I believe there was a time when restaurant owners and hotel owners were pitching to government to have them open up again. And there were some regulations that were set by government that if you want to serve food, then these are the regulations that you must be able to abide by. I'd like, Jimton, if you could please give us a guideline on what those regulations are, so that we can be able to serve brides and grooms, specifically for weddings. What should a caterer have to abide by so that the government certified?
Thank you, Kimari. So, like I said, the food industry is very regulated. Normally, even in normal circumstances, without COVID, we are already normally very, very regulated. So we normally have inspections from the health inspectorate. We have to send our staff members who are handling food, right from the store people to the waiters, to the chefs. We have to send them for testing in the government facilities in order for them to get a certificate. We normally call the government inspectors to come to our facilities to inspect from the kitchen to the stores to the cold rooms, to be able to inspect and ensure that the food is being handled in an environment as per the standards that have already been set. And so one of the things that we are looking at that is a requirement in an environment of a wedding is to ensure that those standards have already been followed. The major item that has now been added that was not there before is basically the COVID testing. And so staff members have to be sent, just not like the regular Mwananchi doesn't have to go for a COVID testing. but staff members in a hotel or in a restaurant or in a catering organization like ours has to go for those testings. And basically it's the COVID-19 testing, because the other tests already are there that we already do periodically depending on the regulations that apply. And so that is one of the major things. Of course, the others is to ensure that now people are wearing masks. Our staff members have to wear masks. We have to wear the face shield. There's an additional face shield that now shields the person in dealing with the clients. And yeah, and so the other issue is wearing gloves and ensuring the use of sanitizers. Those are some of the items that are required. Of course, ensuring that both the clients and also our team members keep a distance, at least 1.5 meters from each other. And so those are some of the requirements that we have put in place according to the requirements of the government to ensure that we manage food in a safe way, even in this moment. Yeah.
Right. Rosemary, I'd like to ask you a question because I believe Jimton has sufficiently tackled the regulations that the government has put in place regarding food. But there are more regulations that I believe the government has put in place. If you could mention to us 2 or 3 of the top most important regulations around, for example, social distancing. But I believe you have better answers. So Rosemary?
Thank you, Kimari. Yes, there are other regulations that pertain to having an event in these COVID times. And one of the ones that everyone is talking about is the 15 guests. So until now, we are still not allowed to have more than 15 guests. However, the 15 guests are not inclusive of your suppliers. So this is just the guest list that you will have. And then you're allowed the very crucial suppliers that need to be there. And then there's also the temperature checks. Those have to be done at the entrance of the event. So when people are coming in, they need to do the temperature check and ensure that people are within the range that is allowed. And if you find someone who is above the range, then you need to know the next step of what to do because they should not be allowed into the event. The third thing is, of course, social distancing. The spacing on the tables has to be observed. So whereas we used to do 10 people per table, now we can only do at most 4. Most ideal is 3, but you can push it to 4 depending on the size of the table. So those are some of the few regulations that we are putting in place and are using going forward for now. Thank you, Kimari.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. I believe I can see the food and beverage manager at Safari Park has joined us. I'll give you 1 minute to weigh in on the same matter from a hotel perspective, if you could. And if you could also please introduce yourself so that we can be able to address you by name. Winfrida, if you could please unmute.
Thank you. My name is Jared Isanda. I work in conjunction with Winfrida. We are colleagues in Safari Park. What I will want to add on what my colleagues have said is that on top of the measures that the Ministry of Health has given us to follow, we have gone ahead and did an isolation room so that once you come to any of our outlets and we find out that your temperature is out of the range that is required, then we take you to that room. Then we have a clinic that is on site. Then we can call our doctor to come and examine you. And then if required, then we get in the Ministry of Health guys to come and assist you. Then one of the other things we are doing is that if we are, for example, if a client comes and insists that the 15 clients have to have a buffet set up, what we are doing is we do the buffet, then make sure that we serve them ourselves, that they don't touch, the utensils that we are using around the buffet area. And if they insist that they must serve themselves, then we have gone ahead and procured some hand gloves that we give them so that they can hold the spoons as they serve along. And we do a container at the end of the serving station so that we make sure that everybody, after they have served, they have to remove the gloves and place them that container. Then
Right.
what we are doing, we are in the process of procuring a booth, a sanitizing booth, so that we can put it at our entrances, so that the guys who are coming in can sanitize themselves at that point. Then, like my colleagues have said, in terms of setup, we are our tables normally take 10 people. So what we have done is now that we do either 4 packs on a table or 5 maximum, so that we in cognizant with the rules of COVID-19. Those are the things that we are doing, and in terms of our
Those that have been
rooms,
set out.
in terms of our rooms, we are sanitizing them. And when we do the setup, we normally put a sanitizer on each table and at the entrance. And all our gates, we sanitize people, we check their temperatures from the gate, as well as checking them at the entrance to the rooms. And for our rooms, we are also sanitizing them, and also we fumigate them on a daily basis, especially the ones that have clients. We sanitize them on daily basis. One is the client, if is a client who is staying in our hotel and they have gone to the meeting, we make sure we go there and sanitize the rooms to make sure that everybody is safe. Thank you, Kimari.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. For the very insightful points. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to move to finances, because we've already discussed finances in a few points we've discussed before. Finances is a big deal. Some people, like I've said, perhaps their businesses are not where they were supposed to be, where they had hoped them to be. Some people have lost their jobs. Perhaps there's another question that came, now that we have downsized the numbers to 15, which is actually the question I think we should tackle. There's a bride who asked, seeing as the wedding numbers have reduced, should pricing for vendors also reduce? It only makes sense, right? I would like Nazira to begin by answering. With regards to fashion, does this apply? Seeing as numbers have reduced, therefore, will prices reduce in what we will wear? Kindly.
Thank you, Kimari. It's a good question. It is very important right now, the way the situation is. We all need to work together. We have reduced the prices of our gowns or anything bridal considerably, not compromising on the quality of what we give. Because this is not just about me, it's about us, all of us together in it. And it's a global issue. So it's very important that we keep our prices fair, that everybody can afford. And we do understand the situation, and it's for all of us to be able to sustain our livelihood the way the situation is. So yes, definitely we have reduced our prices. We try and accommodate any bride that walks in and try and fulfill their dream. It's not all about money. This is temporary. It's going to go. And we look forward to the good days that we used to have. This is the time we have to stand by each other, and together we'll manage and have lovely weddings and beautiful looking brides. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, Nazira. Maureen, with regards to makeup, and another question that perhaps we should be addressing. Remember, the question was with regards to numbers. Now, I'd like to appreciate Nazira for taking into consideration the economy, the current economy. But Maureen, as you answer the question, please weigh in on both the economy and numbers. Do numbers therefore change your price? Maureen?
Well, when it comes to makeup, most makeup artists charge per person. So it will really depend on the number of bridesmaids that the bride will choose to have in her team. So our prices just really remain the same as before. Yeah, so for the brides that I personally met at the Samantha's Bridal Wedding Fair, you all know that I took part in the wedding fair and I got bookings for the whole year. So they already got major discounts. So my prices are already discounted. We know that this pandemic has affected so many people. There've been job cuts, and pay cuts, job losses. So we are flexible with our pricing, and I'm addressing each bride according to each situation. So yes. Thank you, Kimari.
With regards, thank you very much, Maureen. Jimton, with regards to catering, and the reason why we're asking this is because we don't want to assume that it's a blanket answer for everyone. I mean, it's a fair assumption that if I am hosting 15 people, it means I'm not paying food for 500 people, Jimton. Or is this true?
Definitely a smaller number means that you will pay less. But then what we are looking at right now is we are advising our clients to ensure that they give their guests the best, because now you have a smaller budget, you have a smaller number. You would have wanted to have great numbers like many of the brides and the grooms have been having, but then now the number is smaller. So we want to make the menu more cozier, more with more array of items. Make it a 7-course, a 5-course, instead of making it a 2-course or a 3-course. So that's what we are advising now. So stretch it more and let your guests enjoy their meal, even as they celebrate the day with you.
Right. Yeah. Imagine that, a 7-course menu at your wedding. That would be amazing. Winfrida.
Kimari, allow me to add something.
Just 1 minute.
On pricing. Okay.
Just 1 minute. Winfrida, allow me to ask you, specifically with regards to the venue. So Jimton has given us a good answer with regards to catering, but how about the venue? Does the venue change in terms of pricing because of the numbers, Winfrida?
Really, the venue doesn't change as much, because with the new guidelines that have been set out, we have to give you a bigger venue to have the numbers that are stipulated by the government. So we have to, it's a venue that we normally used to give for 50 people, we are giving you a bigger venue that can take up to 150 people, because as my colleague said, we are having 4 people per table. So for the venues, they have to change. So for us, yeah, the venue changes a bit.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. Muntazir, first let me actually go to Terry, because venue and decor are somewhat aligned. Terry, does the price change if numbers change? With regards to decor.
The prices will go down, considering the numbers. The initial numbers might have been high, and now working with 15 as the capacity, the prices will go down. But also depends if the client would want us to do more, as opposed to what they would have done when they had a 700 pax capacity. Yeah, I think that can also be discussed in that level of what are the changes that one would want.
Okay. Thank you very much, Terry. Muntazir, I had mentioned your name. Now, Muntazir, you're representing those in the media world. That's photography and film. Does the price change because numbers have changed? I mean, you are shooting a fewer number of people, I believe, and therefore your movement is not as much. But I don't want to speak on your behalf. I'd rather you advise us, Muntazir.
So I don't think the pricing should change when it comes to photography and video. And let me explain to you why. You see, whether you're doing a 15 people wedding or 100 people wedding, the morning will still start the same, where the bride and the groom will prepare on different venues. This will require 2 different teams to go to 2 different venues and shoot there. When it comes to the church, now with 15 people, I mean, Keegan will also agree here that when you give me a 15 people wedding, I will be more creative than 100 people wedding. And trust in me, when you see that video of a 15 people wedding, you will be mind blown. And I'm not saying that, what do you call, I'm not saying that when we do 100 people wedding, we will not go give the quality. No, no, no. All I'm saying is that because you have just mentioned that the movement is less, because the movement is less, I have more power to create creativity in this now. You see, that is
Right.
what I would not allow pricing to change in the media world, because this is now our time to create, to show the creativity where Kenyans have not seen. Actually, the world has not seen.
Thank
because
you.
now this will be called a Corona wedding, but the creativity is on another level.
Thank you very much, Muntazir. Now, normally as a host, we're not allowed to weigh in on any issue because our job is to moderate. But because the question has been asked and entertainment is still one of the services that you need to have on board at your wedding, let me just give very quick clarity. First and foremost, the sound, the cost of sound will definitely change because you're fewer people. However, if we could mute our mics as panelists, thank you very much. So because you're having fewer people, then of course there will be lesser sound used at your wedding, and therefore the cost is going to be less. However, the work of the DJ will remain the same. They will still play music throughout your day. And the work of the MC also remains the same. Their job is to also manage your entire wedding, speeches, time, people, and to also make sure that you are well entertained. But because of COVID, just as many people have been affected, we also understand that couples have also been affected financially. So depending on the company, some are willing to adjust the price, like Nazira had said, to accommodate where you are. But then again, it's a conversation that you need to have with whoever you choose in any space in the wedding industry, because you also have to understand on their end, they are also making a living, or on their end, they are also supporting other families, and therefore paying full price will actually help many more people in that ecosystem. But Rosemary, if you could please sum it up from a planner's perspective with regards to numbers versus price. Rosemary?
Thank you, Kimari. I like what everybody in this panel has said, just saying what they feel as far as their industry is concerned. And as I have been strongly saying during this COVID season, is that you need to keep communicating with your clients. You cannot just sit back and wait for when they'll call you and tell you, oh, now we're doing our wedding in 10 days. You need to keep communicating with them, because there are all these expectations that they have moving forward for it. And the biggest one is thinking that because we're doing 15 people, then the cost is going to go down. You need to keep communicating with your supplier, with your wedding planner, with each and every person that you had contacted before this pandemic, so that you can know where they stand and how things are going to go. I will say, for example, for a wedding that we did recently, we kept talking with the bride, and she kept saying, we are really hoping to do this, until when finally the AG's office gave them their license and they could do it. And what we then did now was just sit down and say, okay, fine, this is what we had hoped to do for deco, but now what things have changed. So what do you want to change? Do you want to go bigger or go smaller? And for her, she wanted to have her dream wedding. So costs did not come down. Costs probably in some areas went up because things were different, and she now was able to do the wedding that she had hoped to always do, the wedding of her dreams. So I will say that every sector is going to be affected and is going to have to decide how they will move going forward, because we are all affected differently, and depending on the relationship that you have with your client, then you're able to show them why your costs will either go up or come down. So us as planners, what we're doing is insisting that the vendors we keep communicating with the vendors so that we know where they stand as a business. Where do they stand? Are they lowering prices? Are they hiking prices? and how is it going to be going forward. So we are helping brides and couples out there just by guiding them towards how best to move forward in this pandemic.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosemary. Ruth, still as a planner, if you could please advise what thing you begin thinking that you know the full cost of your wedding. And then as you go along, you realize that there are some costs that you wish you knew that you have to incur, but unfortunately you did not know, and therefore you had not budgeted for them. So what are some of the costs that couples are bound to forget about? Or let's call them hidden costs. What are some of the hidden costs in a wedding? Ruth?
Some of the hidden costs I find for the client, that is, a lot of times they don't remember to put aside money or to assign money to accommodate their guests coming from far, especially for the young people who have relatives, grandfather, grandmother, etc., coming from home. Sometimes, or I find that a lot of times they forget to factor in that one. Then the other one is the cost of feeding these guests, that come from far, and before and after the wedding, mostly they'll come in one day before the wedding and then they leave the day after the wedding. So that I find is something that they usually forget to budget for. Another one is moving the guests, these very guests who came from far, especially the old ones, grandfather, aunties, and so on. We are still in an African setting, moving them to and from the venue during the wedding day. Sometimes it is forgotten, not all the time. Another thing is the sitting costs during the committee meetings. Occasionally, people will meet in their houses, but sometimes they meet at a venue, probably it's a restaurant, and a lot of times I find that they don't budget for the money that will be used to pay for the venue, or the food they'll eat at the restaurant while they're meeting, and so on. So this I find a lot of times the people who are wedding normally forget. Then the last thing is the cost of unseen changes due to probably weather or change of venue and so on. I remember a wedding that we did during that time when it was really, really raining, and the bride really wanted hexagons and the groom too, but we told them during this heavy rain, hexagons don't work, they will just go down. So they painfully had to change to an A-frame. But at the end of the day, because of listening to us as the planners, they really had an exciting day. So we just sat down and had a chat and agreed that since you did not have money and you didn't budget for this, you can pay at a later time. Just give us the intervals at which you can pay, and then we'll be able to do the wedding for you. And it worked very well, but it doesn't work like that all the time. So I think it is so important for couples or bride and groom to always factor in a contingency for all these things that may come up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruth. Now I'm looking at the time. It is 8:30 and we were hoping to close this show at 9. So let me just make a kind request to our amazing and dear panelists. I know that you do have the capacity to summarize your answers, yet be able to answer the question very conclusively. So our kind request is if you could perhaps aim to answer the question in about 1 minute, we'll be able to tackle many more questions, including questions that have come from more people. We have an anonymous attendee who has been on fire, sending us question after question after the question on Q&A. Thank you very much, anonymous attendee. We appreciate these questions, and these are very great questions. We will do our best to make sure we answer them. Rosemary, allow me to ask you had been asked about destination weddings, and that is how much does a destination wedding cost, and what factors influence this cost, especially, well, I know it may not apply right now because travel has been limited, but if you could just give a quick answer to that question, and then we can move to the next question. Rosemary?
Thank you, Kimari. Destination weddings are very variant in that it depends on where the destination is. So that means your transport costs are going to weigh in on that. In that, if you're getting vendors from Nairobi, for example, and your wedding is in Taita, we're going to charge you the transport cost to get the things to Taita. So it ends up being a bit more pricey than if you're doing it where the vendors are, and if you cannot find those vendors in that place. So I would say, if someone is asking for a budget, I would say maybe they would be probably looking at, if you're doing about 150 guests, your starting point would probably be about $20,000, which is about 2 million Kenya shillings, just to put everything together and get everyone to the place that you're trying to go. Of course, there are other factors to weigh in, such as accommodation, because are you going to accommodate your vendors, or will they have to find their own accommodation because they'll need to be there for more than one day? So even your guests, are you going to accommodate them? Will they pay for their own accommodation? So there are very many costs that go into doing a destination wedding, which you really need to think through before you agree to do that. Because then if you're going to a hotel, then the costs of food at a hotel and Safari Park will agree on this will not be the same as if you are doing a caterer here in maybe in Nairobi or wherever it is that you would be doing the wedding at. I hope that answers that question, Kimari.
Sorry about that. I seem to have dropped there. Rosemary?
I was saying, I think that answers that question. I hope that's okay, Kimari.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosemary. We've discussed decor, we've discussed food, we have discussed venue to some degree. Photography and film is something that we have not touched on. And Muntazir, if you could please help us with the next question. How do I make sure my family are included in our small ceremony, especially those who are not present? I think Ruth had touched on it a little bit, but if you could expound on how family members can join in at a wedding while still not being physically there. Muntazir?
Okay, so with the new current rulings, with the 15 people ruling, I think the only way we can join a lot of people into the wedding is what Ruth said was live streaming or Zoom, or there are a lot of other apps which you can use. But when Ruth was talking, I actually raised my hand because I wanted to add one very important thing on that when it comes to family, because she said you have to play Kofi Annan, and I think a photographer or a videographer would help her play Kofi Annan, and this is how you would do it. So say, for example, Catherine is in US and she can't come to my wedding. So what I will do now is I will record a private video with my photographer on my wedding day in my gown, dressed up, saying, Catherine, we're sorry for you, you couldn't attend. Thank you very much. And then on top of that, add it with a gift. Like you know, we send a token of appreciation or something like that to Catherine, saying that so even if it has to be shipped to the US. So again, if you look at it, I think it is important to join them in live. Okay, so she will see the live video, but to make it more personal, because you know, when you come to a wedding, you will still be sitting on the bench seeing the vows, right? But that hug, which is the important thing, is that Catherine coming and hugging, saying congratulations, is now you making a video, sending it to them privately. Being live is the same thing as just sitting on the bench in church or on the chairs in a reception, okay? But giving more privatized token to that person because they couldn't attend is very important.
Muntazir, I'd like you to tackle also on the question of live feed. And what I'd like you to discuss is perhaps the technology behind it, assuming we are all laymen and do not know what a live feed is. And then after that, Catherine, I'd like you to also weigh in on the same. Muntazir?
So with the live feed, you see so you have to understand one thing is that keep the photographers and videographer team, which is shooting your wedding, aside first. That is dedicated to cover your wedding. The minute you talk about live streaming to the videographer, okay, so if the same videographer who is shooting your wedding does live streaming, okay, he will lose creativity. So what happens now is that you need to hire a separate videographer from that company itself. So for example, now you will tell me, Muntazir, don't send 2 videographers. You need to send 3 videographers, because one of them will be covering it live. And that now will have a different camera connecting to the internet, connecting to a video mixer. You see, all this have to come to your wedding now. Initially, there was no such thing. It was people coming with their car. Now I'm bringing the car to the wedding so that I can take it to the people. Okay? So
Right.
I have to bring in internet connection, number one. Okay? And thank God we have 4G in Nairobi, so it's good. Now, for example, if you're doing a wedding somewhere where the network is bad, okay? You see, couples need to understand this, that yes, you might hire a videographer to do live stream, but don't come to a point where now you want to sue somebody because the internet was not working. Because at the end of the day, internet is dependent on signal. Okay? So if the signal, you have to bring the internet connection to you. Number 2, I have to come in with an extra cameraman and wiring and all that. So that has to be done prior to your wedding. So now I'm going to enter into a different set where on the wedding day I have to come and shoot, but now I have to come one day earlier to do a whole new setup for me to just do live.
Right.
And now you see, here is when your pricing question also comes in. After doing all this, are you expecting that we should lower the price? How? This is increasing the price by 4 times already. The amount of work I'm doing.
Additional service.
It's a different, yes. So wedding shooting, as I said earlier in the beginning of this talk here, wedding photographer, keep him separate. This is a different service, whether it's from the same company or whether it's from a different company. It has to be separated. It cannot be the same.
Thank you, Muntazir. Catherine, I'd like you to weigh in on this, but before you do, Keegan, I'd like you to prepare on this question, which is what do we don't want guests to take pictures during the ceremony, even during the reception. And this is a question that was asked. How do we stop them from doing it without confiscating their phones? Because I guess people have reached have gotten to the place where they wish they could just take the phones or tablets. Think on that question, Keegan, as Catherine weighs in. Catherine?
Yeah, again, good evening, everybody. It's such an amazing conversation. So on the issue of live streaming, I think it may, like Muntazir has mentioned, it may also affect the venue that you choose, because those are new factors then you're looking at. You want a live streaming, then you want a venue that actually has a strong Wi-Fi. So, and I think if there are any venue owners listening, for example, like Safari Park, then you want to think that is an extra requirement couples in the future are going to be looking at. So that is extremely important. The other thing, there's also etiquette around it. Just because you're gonna be having 15 guests, there's etiquette about inviting. So invite in such a way that they're not like plan B. This is their plan A. They stay at home and they watch you, like they are really part of the event, and make it feel special, a special invitation, a special live watching. Yeah, make it special for them. The other thing to consider also is, what is it? It keeps skipping my mind. But as I remember that, I wanted to mention about color that Tandy was talking about. You know, color is someone earlier on asked a question on color, and I feel I should talk about that. That color is very emotive. And right now, color is also psychological. It means the place where you are psychologically will determine the colors you gravitate to. So during this time of COVID, a lot of people are scared. There's a lot of anxiety. So we may gravitate towards certain colors. So when this thing is over, you've postponed your wedding, you will look at those colors and completely hate them. So, so what I want to say to all the couples who are actually planning a wedding, that you may want to reconsider your color, not to settle on a color right now. And back to Wi-Fi, such that if you, the live streaming, if you want your wedding to be private, then you don't want to post it on your wedding website or something like that, because then it will be public. So you also want to look at the privacy issues. I think that's it.
Thank you, Catherine. Much appreciated. Keegan, there was a question about photos and tablets. I mean, phones and tablets being used at a wedding and how to manage this.
Thank you, Kimari. That's a brilliant and beautiful question. I will start by saying, quoting Catherine, Dr. Catherine Matsitsa. She says, and I agree with her, that wedding mistakes are expensive and extremely painful. And therefore, you as a couple need, as you're getting the people who will be providing services to you, you really need to do your due diligence and get the right people, because then we are not doing this again. So the first thing I do when I meet my couple, as I onboard them, I normally ask them who their MC is, and who the MC is determines a lot of things. So if I'm told it's Kimari Maina who's MCing at a certain event, then after that wedding, I'll reach out to Kimari. And the reason for that is
after the meeting,
I'll reach out to Kimari and I tell Kimari, hey Kimari, I think there's a gig we're doing together and this and that, so that we just catch up. So the reason for doing that, one of the reasons is this. You are at a wedding, and Mutazir Yusuf will agree with me. You're at a wedding, the bride is walking down the aisle, and then someone just gets up and comes to your way with a huge tablet or a smartphone. We are here to get those simple, those sweet moments that the bride will ask you for after the wedding. I wanted to see myself walking down the aisle with my parents, or I just wanted to see myself walking down the aisle alone. Someone is there with a huge tablet blocking you. Is it be it the first kiss? Yeah, the people have been joined. Now they're going for their first kiss. A relative is there with a phone on your face. Yeah, is it be it the father-daughter first dance? Be it the exchanging of rings and vows? Be it the cutting of the cake? And you realize these are some of the details that really make the juicy part of the photos that the bride will look for, especially the bride. She will look for these moments. I wanted to see how my first kiss. Where is the photo for my when I was dancing with my dad? Where's the photo when we were exchanging rings and vows? Yeah. So what I do first, I normally ask my MC to help me with it. So the MC will just announce, as people are getting in, will just announce politely and tell people that, hey, we have professional wedding photographers. So please ensure that you give them the room and the time to take photos. And after this wedding, you will have the opportunity to get the photos that you share with whoever you want. And two, I normally tell my couple and my clients to put a note in their wedding program so that you just indicate it there, that we request you that on our wedding day, please, we have professional photographers. So keep your phone away so that we have the best for us. Just don't be selfish. Let the bride and groom have their day. Let them have good photos for their day. So if the bride and groom can keep that in their program, it goes a long way. And I also normally advise them to have a small sign on the reception tables just on the centerpieces, you could have a small sign on the centerpieces just that says just turn down on the photos. You could say take selfies, but then just make sure that you don't come in the way of the photographer and the videographer. And finally, I also tell and advise the MC and the people providing the sound to just provide humor while doing that, so that you also don't appear rude to your guests who also come to grace your occasion and have a good time. So that is how I normally handle it. Kimari?
Thank you so much, Keegan.
I would like to add something, if I'm allowed here. Kimari?
Yes, Muntazir?
If you don't mind, can I add something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so in terms of this phone photography, it's not only the guests actually, but sometimes it's also, for example, a cake vendor who will come there and she'll also stand in the middle trying to take a photo of that cake, okay? And it all helps. I mean, I remember we did a wedding where on the reception, we and you were standing here, and in front of us, there was a whole semicircle of phone photographers. And you actually stopped the whole entrance and controlled it for me. And you knew at that time, the pressure in a photographer is so high. It's like not getting a shot and you can't see. So I think the best option for brides and grooms is this. Put it in your program, as Keegan said, but write it there. No phone or photography allowed and no Facebook posting allowed. The minute you put that, I mean, whether you see, for us, we need to post on Facebook, and we will do that later on. Even the bride will want her to be posted on Facebook. But in that program, as a political way of doing this and not putting the MC also into jeopardy, because it will look like huyu MC anatuzarau, hataki tupige picha na simu. So to make sure nobody gets like bad-eyed, you just put it there that we would appreciate that you keep our privacy. Do not use your phones to take photos.
Right.
If you need photos, please let us know. We will tell our photographers to do so. And it works.
Thank you, Muntazir. And like the photographers have said, it's a combined effort between the bride, the groom, the photographers, and the master of ceremony. Heck, even the person doing the cards. It's a combined effort between all these parties. So thank you, Keegan. Thank you, Muntazir. Keegan, I'd like you to think of another question before we take a poll. We're going to take a poll, and this is my way of trying to speed up the conversation. Is there a possibility of a wedding rush? I hear there are lots of couples pushing their weddings to December because, of course, they've had to postpone it, and so they chose the next best month, which is December. So will we be having a lot of weddings in December? And if that is the case, then what should a bride and groom do to be able to make sure that they have all their vendors? Think of that question as I take a quick poll here. There was a question that had been asked. Are all the weekend wedding dates basically gone for 2020 and 2021? Weekend weddings. So we're just going to take a quick poll here. I will point to you, and then you'll just tell me if you're fully booked in 2020 and 2021 or not. And I guess that will be able to give us a good idea of where we are. And this is for the sake of the bride who would like to perhaps book a vendor. So I'll begin with you, Muntazir. Are you fully booked in 2020 and are you fully booked in 2021?
No, not really. We're still open.
Okay. Terry? If you could unmute yourself, please.
I was saying we are still open.
Okay.
You're not yet fully booked.
All right, Maureen?
Yes, we are very much open, not fully booked.
All right, Jimton. And what I'm doing is I'm just selecting people from different segments in the industry, just so that we can be able to answer that question. Jimton?
We are not fully booked. We are still taking more bookings.
Okay, so basically to those who are planning their weddings, There was a concern that perhaps it might be too late for you to be able to reach out to any of the vendors, but simply by a quick sample, we can see that it's not too late. Reach out to your vendor and find out from them if they're fully booked, if they're booked on your wedding day, and then be able to proceed and book them. Keegan, therefore, about the rush for December, is this a possibility? And here you're speaking on behalf of all wedding vendors, not just photography. Keegan?
Kimari, you're trying to put me in trouble with the other vendors. Let me speak about myself, and then now we can also speak about others.
Well, Keegan, the question is,
yeah,
what should brides, is there a rush for couples in December? And if there is, what should a couple do in order to secure their vendors? Keegan.
I get you. So Kimari, and everyone that is watching us, I'll tell you for free that I'm personally getting, our company is personally getting a lot of inquiries. We are getting a lot of people who are looking at October, November, and December. Yeah, reason being the reason being a lot of things that are happening in the world. We are looking at end of year, early next year, getting a vaccine by end of year, early next year. Locally in the country, people are also looking to hear what the president will say by end of this month. And to be very honest with you, I am getting a lot of requests for October and November. And even the clients that I had who had their weddings in May and June have pushed their weddings. And everyone is talking about November and December. They are trying to be safe so that if anything happens, then towards the end of the year, they are okay. And this just comes back to the law of economics, the law of demand and supply. When the demand is too high, when the demand is too high, prices automatically will go up. So I'm trying to, all I'm trying to say is, if there's a couple, a bride that is looking to have their wedding by end of this year, please do your research now, get the people you want to get, and start having these conversations with them. Because you are going to get to a point where the demand is too high, the prices have gone high, and the service providers that you're looking for, those particular service providers that you want to cover your wedding, are already taken. Yeah, right. We personally cover very limited weddings in a year because ours is customized. My company and I personally, I don't as a business strategy, we don't take more than one wedding on a particular day. So that we give that attention and quality and clarity of everything to that one client. So think about it this way. By end of December, we are gone. So my word and my clarion call to every person who's looking to have their wedding this year, there's gonna be a lot of people who are getting married by end of this year, early next year. And because we have the time right now, get those vendors, look for them, sit them down, look at how you can work together, put it in a contract, and get booking. Book your suppliers right now. Book them right now. Yeah.
Right.
So yes, I think there's gonna be a huge rush towards the end of the year for people who are getting married. Yeah, be it photography, be it grounds, be it deco. So if you're looking to have that beautiful wedding that you're thinking about, get booking. Okay. Get booking. Yes.
Rosemary, I'd like you to think through a question, which is how what is exactly happening at the registrar right now? Because I think that does affect the date that someone might choose going forward. Even as I ask these other panelists these questions, which is, should we postpone our wedding? I'm going to ask Wilfrida, Jimton, and Maureen. And 10 seconds, 20 seconds worth of an answer. Should couples postpone their weddings? The couples who have been affected this far, should they postpone their weddings I'll begin with Jimton.
I think the answer to that is it depends with the couple. There are couples who really find it that they want just to do a small wedding. They can do a small wedding and maybe in the future do a bigger one. We've seen people in the US, you know, a couple does a wedding in the US and they'll come to Kenya and do another wedding. You know, there are all kinds of parameters. So somebody can do a small wedding or can postpone and wait and do a bigger wedding later on. So it depends on what somebody wants. Or do a small wedding now, and then later on do a bigger one to ensure that you invite all the guests here. So that's my comment. Thank you,
Thank
Kimari.
you very much, Jimton. Winfrida?
Okay, I would want to also to confirm with what Jimton has said. It depends with the couple because you really don't have to wait. If you want to get married now, you can get married now. Your family will understand the situation in place. So it depends with what you want. If you want a bigger wedding, then postpone it to when the measures are a bit lenient. But for now, it just depends with the client. And we are open to all ideas from the client. Yeah.
Okay, Maureen?
My view and my advice to brides is do not postpone your wedding. Do not postpone your wedding because eventually things are going to open up soon. And you're going to have a really hard time to get your preferred vendors. So all the brides who've postponed their weddings later will be rushing to book, and unfortunately their preferred vendors may not be available. Like Keegan said, you know, like I personally don't take double bookings. So once a bride has booked with me, and that's it, I'm not going to take another booking. So if you postpone, you may end up stranded and your preferred vendor might be taken. So do not postpone your weddings.
Okay. Based on what Maureen had said, that things might open up soon. Rosemary, if you could just give us a quick update on what's happening at the registrar of marriages, that might give us good guidance on, you know, should we postpone, should we not postpone, and then we can be able to move on to the next question. Rosemary?
Thank you, Kimari. I think the issue of postponing or not right now rests with the AG's office. So if you're a couple that had already registered before COVID-19, they have been actually contacting people to go and pick their licenses, the licenses that are ready. And when you get the call or the text, then you go to the office and you pick it. However, if you had not applied for the license, then you have to wait until they open up. What they have said is that they're issuing licenses that had been applied before COVID and that had not expired. There's normally a 90-day period of expiry. So if it's not 90 days since you had applied, then it's still valid. If the 90 days have passed, then it's no longer valid and you will need to do a fresh application once they open up. So yes, your date will be determined by whether you can get your special license or not. Thank you, Kimari.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. And maybe just a quick note, the registrar is actually quite active on Facebook, the marriage registrar, and their Facebook page is the Attorney General of Kenya. Reach out to them if you want to know what's happening legally. They have posted tons of information on their Facebook page. Check that out, the Attorney General, the Attorney General's Office, Kenya. I believe it's something close to that. And you'll be able to find a majority of the answers to a majority of the questions you're already asking on their page. Now, it is 8:57. We had aimed to do this till 9. I would like to first and foremost apologize to our viewers for stretching, for I can see we are possibly about to stretch a little bit more. If you can allow me to stretch till 9:15, I'd sincerely appreciate your time. In addition, I would like us to change the format of the webinar a little bit. And this one I will be addressing our panelists. So allow me to allocate specific questions that have been asked on the Google or on the Zoom Q&A to specific panelists for you to go there and live chat that person and therefore be able to answer that question. And therefore we'll be tackling both the people who have asked the questions on Q&A and questions that had already been asked by brides from before. So I hope that is okay to our panelists. Let me just quickly go through this before we discuss a very interesting topic, which is vendors and postponement and cancellation, and therefore deposits. which I think is something we should definitely handle. So on Q&A, we had Daisy Flora asking, what are the current guidelines on the number of people allowed at the church ceremony and at the reception? Rosemary had tackled this question before, but if you could please go to the Q&A and be able to answer that question, we'd sincerely appreciate. Then Rebecca Ligo had asked, great process and learnings going on. Would it be possible to have a transparent mask? Lips are so significant, it's the only way we see a smile. That's a fantastic question. Maureen and Nazira, could you please help us by answering this question on live chat so that we can be able to save on time? If you could just go to the Q&A and be able to answer that question from there, we'd sincerely appreciate. The anonymous attendee, surely we need to know you by name, but we shall answer your question nonetheless. Is there a challenge with acquiring marriage certificates currently? I believe Rosemary has answered that question already. Is it true we now have a 90-day waiting period for registration of weddings? And if so, how does it work? So the 90-day period, it's not true. Maybe I could just quickly answer that. It's not true. It's still a 21-day period. But again, Rosemary had answered that question. And I will request Rosemary to please go back and answer this same question. Daisy Flora had, that's the same question. Someone had mentioned to me, again, the anonymous attendee, that there's a marriage registration office in Thika taking new applications. Can someone confirm, please? I will leave this question open for any of our panelists to be able to answer, because I'm not too sure if we have that information about the registration on in Limuru County, Thika being the head office, I believe. So I'll leave that question open to any of our panelists to answer. And if none of the questions have been answered, we will definitely come back to this Q&A section and be able to tackle the same. Now, about vendors, allow me to skip to a more touchy topic, which is cancellation and refunds. And then if we have time, we will come back to the vendor category. Jimton, this is a question that you had been asked by a bride, I believe. I thought the contract will change because we've changed the wedding, or does it matter? Jimton?
Yeah, it matters. The contract matters. What we are doing with our clients is that we are making the contracts open-ended. You know the way sometimes you book an airline ticket and then you're not sure when to travel, so you just leave it open-ended. So that's what we are doing. So the contract will end at the point when the event is done. So for now, it's open-ended.
Thank you very much, Jimton. Muntazir, are deposits refundable? So the question that had been asked is that many questions had been asked in this area. Do I get my deposits back if I cancel? Will we lose deposits if we cancel our wedding? Can you ask for a refund of your deposit if the vendor isn't available on the postponed date? Are deposits refundable? And I'd like to hear an answer from both Muntazir and from Nazira. Muntazir?
Okay, so let me ask you a question first, and you're going to answer this. And I'm going to use Jimton's idea. If you book a ticket and then you go to Kenya Airways and tell them, now I don't want it because I don't know when I'm going to travel, so cancel it. But you had booked a ticket for, say, today, and you went last week and said, now I don't know when I'm going to travel because of Corona, so I want my full money back. Will they give it back to you?
So I guess my question back to you would be, where do you balance between the fact that this epidemic, nobody foresaw it coming, and therefore there's a loss both on there is an assumed loss on the vendor side because perhaps they will not be able to get the full money for doing a full job, and perhaps there's a loss also on the couple side. So I guess my question to you is, where do we strike the balance?
So let me put it this way. I mean, all the vendors here, apart from weddings, they can do a lot of other events, okay? So say, for example, if you booked Jimton for a 50 people wedding, okay? You can have him change that to, for example, a three event, a baby shower or a newborn baby party or something like that, which is of 15 people, and which now will cater for 45 people and come to a mutual understanding. Okay, because you see what happens is when you actually make the deposit in a lot of companies, what they do is they will tell you 50% non-refundable deposit is required. Okay, and yes, we, as Nazira said, it is for us. We will also come halfway and tell you that, look, let's do a different solution to this, rather than now coming and telling us pull out so if the contract was 100,000, now you want me to pull out 50,000, which you had paid me first you had paid me in installments. So let's put it that way. First you decided that you'll pay me 10 for 5 months, and then your wedding is another 5 months away. Okay, so the 50% deposit was paid in 5 installments. But when you come to me, you will tell me you want a refund of 50,000 immediately, number one. Number two, how do I give it to you? You tell me. Rather than doing that, you would tell me, I have a baby coming. Can we do a baby bump photo shoot? How much does it cost? Minus from 50,000. I have this event. How much does it cost? Minus from 50,000. Eventually, you will get the service. I mean, this is something which a bigger company, like a very huge company, okay, would not allow it. But because we are like, we never foresaw this coming, and we work with you because we like to make your wedding the big thing. We will come halfway, but you also need to come halfway because we still have families to feed.
Thank you, Mutazir. I hear what you're saying is that there needs to be a conversation. And this is a very touchy topic because it does touch on money. Rosemary, I'd like you to, after we hear Nazira's response on the same, is what if the vendor is not available on the date that the wedding has been postponed to? How should we tackle? I'd like Rosemary to answer that question.
Oh, sorry.
What should we do if the deposit, we've already paid a deposit, but the date that we have postponed the wedding to, the vendor of our choice is not available. But just after Nazira tells us about deposits, specifically for dresses, for gowns, my apologies. So if I've put a deposit on a gown, but I've had to cancel my wedding, how would you handle it? Or how would you advise someone in the fashion space to handle it? Nazira? Sorry, Nazira, you're still muted.
Okay.
There you are. Yes, Nazira.
Good. Okay, the policy we have when we sell a gown is that there is a non-refundable deposit. However, the situation we are in right now, what we do is we allow them time. We hold their gown at whatever deposit they may have paid, even maybe a 10%. We hold their gown until the time they're ready to get married. And in case they decide that there's a change of plan and the wedding will happen maybe a year later, we give them a credit note, which they're going to use it only towards their wedding gown. So eventually, when they're ready, they're going to use that money to purchase a gown from us for their wedding. They cannot use that credit note for other purpose. Because like Mutazir mentioned, I totally agree with him that it's paid in installments. And let's say, like he mentioned, that they've paid 50,000 or 40,000, which was paid over a time of 4 months. And then suddenly they show up, and like, you're not dealing with one bride, you're dealing with many. So certain rules have to be set that will help us and help them have their security to have a credit note or a money that's allowed to be used for about a year's term. And that way it works out for both of us.
Thank you, Nazira. Thank you very much, Nazira. Rosemary, what if the vendor is not available on the new date?
Thank you, Kimari. I'd like to just weigh in on what Muntazir had said, that these vendors have families to feed. And the backstory of any bride paying towards a wedding, it goes towards taking care of different people. We have workers, we have people who work for us. And so there are many other factors that go into a payment that has been done versus just the deposit of your wedding. On to the next question. Well, I would say depends on the weight of the vendor. So for example, if the vendor who is not available on your wedding day is the only vendor who can do that, which I would think is highly not very likely, then you would probably consider to work with them on a date that they're available. Say maybe the venue, if you wanted your wedding at Safari Park and Safari Park is fully booked and you really want to do it at Safari Park, then maybe that is something that would make you want to rethink your date. But then in other instances where maybe it's myself as a florist, I'm not available on the day, conversations that we have had in the past are such that I have other florists in the industry who understand my style and would be able to execute the wedding very well. So what we do is we have the conversation with the other florist and tell them, look, I have this wedding, I'm not available. This is how much we had worked out the quotation to be. Is it something that you can do? And if the client is willing, then that other florist comes in and does the job, and it's a win-win situation for everybody. So I would say postponing your wedding does not have to be determined by the vendor unless the vendor is like very critical to your wedding. Thank you, Kimari.
Thank you very much. Catherine, I'd like you to weigh in on this because I feel you're perhaps the, now allow me to just play host. Actually, all the vendors here are my friends, and therefore I would not want to give my opinion because I might also be viewed as a vendor. And at the same time, I've also, yeah, actually, I'll just put it that way. I'm a vendor, but Catherine, you're not a vendor. And so I feel your answer might perhaps be somewhere in the middle. And on top of that, I'd also like you to tackle the courtesy of cancellation. Because I think at the end of the day, what's important is that the relationship is maintained, whichever direction we go. Catherine.
Yeah, Kimari, thank you very much. Right now, I think a lot of vendors are having to deal with the issue of cancellations. And so, as in everything, I think so that, we have a school and we teach wedding planners. And we have a particular topic on contracts. And I always say everything depends on the contract. And I think so that this year, what COVID has done is to teach brides and even vendors to imagine that a contract, most of the time we write contracts, but we never actually sometimes have to go and look at them. By the time you're going back to look at a contract, something is wrong. So you always must make sure that when you write a contract, it can even stand in the court of law, because some of the contracts that are written in the industry cannot even stand. So in terms of whether or not you get your money, sometimes it's about the contract, what the contract says. Just because of COVID, unless it was particularly indicated in the contract, if it's an act of nature, what they call the force majeure. In Kenya, the pandemic was said it was a force majeure. But unless that was in the contract, then you have to pay. But there are ways to go about it. But it all depends on the courtesy, the etiquette you employ. So this is for couples out there. You will have to learn a bit of Kofi Annan. Ruth, thank you for introducing the Kofi Annan word. You will learn to be a bit of Kofi Annan to navigate through that. The first thing I want to say is that be kind. If you're a couple and you want to cancel your contract, number one, be kind. Remember, you chose these people, you wanted to work with them, and this is why you got into the contract. And this situation is no one's fault. So be kind in whatever it is, how you talk, how you do everything, be kind. The other thing is do your due diligence in terms of go back to the contract, read through it, and just ensure you understand everything because your vendor is actually looking at it. Maybe you're the one who generated the contract. It depends on who generates the contract. Most of the time it's the vendor who generated the contract. And also be very clear on the language. Sometimes there's legal jargon that has been used in the contract. Be clear on it, be clear that you understand it so that when you go to negotiate, it actually helps you, because sometimes you're going and you're discussing things that you don't even know. So be sure that you understand clearly what the contract says, including the legal lingo that has been used. The other thing is that when you want to cancel the contract or postpone, try and make it personal. Sometimes when we write letters, sometimes we may come off as very strict, as very legal, annoying and vexing to the spirit. And that can just come off really badly. And yet you did not mean that. Pick a phone if you cannot get this person, but more likely go and sit with them, because then you can see their body language. Then you can read exactly where is their predisposition. And when you can read how they're predisposed, then you know where the conversation is going to, and you can read the body language. The other thing is that once you have agreed, make sure you have everything in writing. Whether or not the vendor decides to return your money, or they say, especially if they say they will return your money, make sure you get it in writing, because things can actually change. And then the other thing is that just be honest about the problem, why you are, sometimes you lie because you want to get another vendor. Don't forget we talk. All the vendors talk. So we are not enemies. So we will know that when you're lying, you're going to that other vendor, you're going to that other vendor, and we know you. So just really be honest about your problem. That is good etiquette. The other thing is that be upfront with what you want. Don't be yo-yo like that in terms of what you want and you're not, and don't be afraid to negotiate. The other thing you can offer is to give a really good review for the vendor. Vendors will look at it politely in terms of, yeah, you're going to write, because we rely on reviews. If a particular vendor is reviewed really badly sometimes, it may affect even future clients coming in. You can offer that. The other thing is you can also try and respect contracts. I think I've seen many people, not just even bridal contracts only, people enter into contracts and they don't respect contracts. Remember, the courts of law don't exist to create contracts for you. And once I sign a contract with you, the court will respect that contract unless it is something that goes against your constitutional rights. So it's very important that couples and even vendors, especially couples, understand that you must actually respect vendors. I mean, respect the contracts. But all in all, I just want to say the etiquette. If you are polite, I think, Kimari, we talked a little bit earlier on before this, and that at one point this client came to you and they're like, do you know who we are? And you said, okay, I was just trying to work out the situation. So you want us to look at the contract? Okay, let's follow the contract. And the contract was very punitive. So they lost in the first place. But there are clients who you actually just let go of easy, because I think vendors want to understand. We all want you to get married. And we don't want you to suffer. That is the etiquette. Just be courteous. Thank you, Kimari.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And you know what? I think based on a few things, one being time, it is 9:17, and I had promised our viewers and listeners that we would close by 9:15. And seeing as Catherine has closed that conversation with such a high note, thank you very much, Catherine. I think it's only fair that I close this webinar. However, we still have so many questions that have not been answered. So could I kindly request if our panelists could go to the chat section, so not the Q&A section, but the chat section, and leave your Instagram handle. So for example, ours is @Sisimsha. Type it there. I say so that those who are watching us can be able to reach out to us if they have questions that they feel have not been addressed. If you can also go ahead and leave your phone number on the same chat section, that will also allow them to your phone number or your website or your email address, any way that our attendees or viewers can be able to reach out to you, please do so. and we would be more than happy to reach out to you. We will allow our attendees to reach out to us and be able to ask their questions directly to us and receive free consultation. Elizabeth Gatti, I can see your hand raised. I sincerely apologize. I realize we may not be able to invite you in to ask your question simply because of time. And I also would like to apologize to our two viewers, our viewers on YouTube who had asked questions regarding the dress. Let me just locate that question. Kezia Auma and Catherine Rukenya, your questions were about the gown, the bridal gown. So Nazira, I'd like you to reach out to Nazira Dala, who will be able to answer those particular questions about your bridal gown. So please reach out to her. Next Boutique on their website or on their Instagram handle, as Nazira will share on the chat section. That'd be fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick parting shot. I'll begin with Muntazir because he is actually a judge at a show that is also just about to start, so that we can release you. And then we will go round and close with Catherine. Muntazir, your parting shot.
Thank you, Kimari, for considering that. I think my parting shot is that Corona has caught us, abrupt. We were not, we had not safeguarded ourselves, and we were not ready for all this. We never knew what was coming on. But one thing you need to understand, and this is because I've been listening to a lot of webinars from doctors and stuff like that, that it is very important for you to understand Corona is not the end of the world. We are coming, the world will come back. It's just that the new norm will be there. I can still meet you, Kimari, but only difference will be that we'll not shake hands and we'll be wearing a mask. But we need to understand that first. Once that psychologically is already in us, then planning a wedding will not be an issue because we are already here. We have already been doing research and all. I'm sure all the vendors have been doing research about this. So I think couples need to understand it, that Corona is not the end of the world. It's not that because I've postponed my wedding and it'll never happen, let me cancel it and do it a short one and all that. No, just wait for it and it will go down.
Thank you very much, Muntazir.
If you don't mind, can I leave?
Yes, please. Thank you very much also for coming. So we have an interesting ton of events. We actually have other great vendors who have been watching us, and they're also posting their contacts on the chat section. Kanyo Hao, we see you. Thank you very much for sharing. So if you are a vendor and you're watching, please do leave your details also on the chat section for the sake of the couples so that we can be able to reach out to them. Then lastly, I will request if we could make our parting shots much shorter, 30 seconds maximum. I will move to you, Maureen, and then I will come to Winfrida. Maureen?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kimari. And my parting shot to the brides is that just know that we are here for you and we are ready to connect with you emotionally. And to the brides who've postponed or canceled their weddings for one reason or another, know that you're not in this alone. Most of us vendors are focusing on flexibility by allowing you all to postpone or to reschedule your wedding dates. So just remain calm and remember that we want your wedding to be successful. To all the brides watching right now, remember this. It may be different, but it will be meaningful and special eventually. Thank you so much and stay safe and keep looking fabulous at home.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Just a quick note to everyone who is posting on chat, please make sure to select all panelists and attendees. I can see majority of us have just chosen all panelists, so only the panelists can see what you've posted there. Please make sure to also click all panelists and attendees so that our attendees can be able to see your contacts. Terry Mugo, you've done that very well. Thank you very much. For the rest of us, please make sure you do the same. Winfrida, actually, I believe, seeing as the camera is facing the F&B manager, if you could please give your 30-second parting shot. Unmute yourself, please.
sorry for that. Our parting shot on behalf of Safari Park is that we want to encourage everybody that the Corona is here to stay with us. There is nothing much we can do about it, but we can be able to keep ourselves safe. We are ready for you. In terms of cancellations, our last option is you cancel. But we encourage everybody to postpone if the reasons for postponing are not cannot be able to be managed. But we are ready for you. We will keep you safe as much as we keep ourselves safe. Thank you to all.
Thank you very much. I will move to Jimton, followed by Terry. Jimton.
Thank you, Kimari. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to interact with our clients who are very valuable. COVID, as many of us have said, is here with us. We have to find a way of navigating around it. I think slowly by slowly around the world, in Kenya here, we are finding a way of navigating around it. And so we are here for you. Ask us your questions, your worries, your concerns, and we will be able to answer you. We are able to meet with you and discuss further. And so just contact us and we will be able to give you feedback that is good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terry?
This goes to our clients. I would say don't postpone. Go ahead and do your wedding. Don't put your life on hold. Do it now and go on with the rest of your life together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. I'd like to invite Ruth, followed by Keegan and then Rosemary. Ruth?
Thank you so much, Kimari and Catherine, for this opportunity. It's amazing. My parting shot is, even as waiting is a virtue, because sometimes you need to pay a price to get what you want, let the brides and the grooms not be afraid, like my colleagues have said, to have their weddings go. Let's work together and see how to produce the best of what you want in this season and come up with, bring out all the creativity, both in you and us, to bring your day to fruition. God bless you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I thank you all for being patient with us. For those who taken time to be with us up to this point, we thank you so much. Kimari and Dr. Catherine, asanteni sana for hosting us and for this opportunity to speak to people. Just a few things that people already know. To our clients, I want to remind you that this is one day that has a lot of memories. So get it right, because again, like I said before, those mistakes are extremely expensive and painful. Find the person who has your style and book them quickly. And finally, know that we are together in this. Know that we think about you. Know that we are here to tell your stories, your love stories beautifully, and make memories that will last a lifetime for you. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Keegan. Rosemary?
Thank you very much, Kimari and Samantha's Bridal, for hosting this webinar. From me, it's that love is not cancelled. So we are here for you. We're here to guide you. We're here to walk with you. Keep up the hope. The weddings are still going to happen in due time. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, Dr. Catherine Masitsa. Your parting shot, please. Daktari, if you could please unmute yourself.
Yeah. I can't believe Anyway, thank you, the panelists. You've been great, really amazing. I'm also just learning. Also, we are all learning on the job on these things. Viewers and listeners, thank you also for joining us. So next week we are still on, and we are tackling a special part on relationships, and which is really important, and which is my parting shot, that remember why you're doing this, why you're actually having a ceremony in the first place, is because you're getting married to the person you love. You know, and so don't take it seriously. Just, you can soak in all the emotions. It's a very emotional time. You know, you thought you'd be married by now and maybe you're not. Just soak in the emotions, but don't take it too seriously. It is never that serious. Believe me, it's never that serious. Even these will pass. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to give, as we close, I'd like to give a special shout out to those watching us from YouTube: Stella Kabochi, Chiganos, Clear Lens, ACIT Media, Kagure Mureithi. Thank you so very much. Marion, who has been helping us manage the YouTube space. I want to acknowledge you. Thank you very much for being our YouTube producer. And of course, Catherine, Rukenya, and Kezia Auma, who had sent us questions earlier on. You can, because they don't have access to the Zoom feature, so to Catherine and Kezia, allow me to just read out. You can find Nazira Dalla, who was our panelists on fashion and bridal gown on Facebook. That's Next Boutique on Facebook. And you can ask her your questions and she'll be more than happy to address the same. It has been my absolute sincere honor and privilege to host this webinar. Thank you so very much again for being patient with us all the way till 9:29. 29 extra minutes is no little time. We sincerely appreciate you being here. And like Catherine had said, we hope to see you in our next webinar series. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will attempt to close with some music. You are welcome to dance along.